some of the things that you've been saying, I don't know if I want to not even associate with you, because that's the wrong term, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it's your views are so, both of our views maybe, like people when they don't agree on the same political ideology, which is fucking hilarious, that relationship becomes tainted. It's very similar to like if we don't like the same movies. Like if you liked Marvel and I liked DC and we hated each other's movies, we would never talk about movies. And that's so silly.
Right.
That's so silly.
Right.
Funny how.
Come here though. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you?
So we're going to start this podcast with kind of like context, so people know rather kind of what we're going to get into. So we don't really know what we're going to talk about too much, except for the fact that I think it's important to have these type of conversations in a podcast environment. I mean, face to face obviously would be beneficial, but you know, John and I, we now live about 2 hours away from each other. So, and that's on a good day with traffic.
Yeah.
So I usually like to have a little bit of politics on my podcast, not necessarily because I have an agenda by any means, but I do think it's interesting debate to talk to people. Very similar to like, I'm also an atheist. I'm agnostic, really, if you want to get detailed about that. But I had a guy that is like hardcore Christian on my podcast, and we had like a 2-hour, conversation that was really eye-opening for me. I learned a lot, and I'm sure he, I don't know if he learned anything, but he might have gotten challenged on some points.
Sure.
But their answer is always, well, faith. Okay, well, that's an easy answer. But there was.
I know it's. Trust me. I'm sure I've told you before, but if you forgot, from kindergarten, so from K4 all the way to 12th grade, I went to the same Southern Baptist Christian school. So my whole life. So I was rooted. I was very much rooted in a extremely conservative religious background and all that. So I know. Trust me. I've learned a lot from other people too. But there's so much that goes on. Of course, faith is always the easy cop out.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so the reason I bring that up is because I don't like to talk about controversial stuff on the podcast, because I like to mainly talk about just health, wellness, as you know. Mental, physical well-being. And then of course, now it's a little bit more parenting, talking to fellow dads and all that, which of course we could talk about maybe at the end of this. But I wanted to start the beginning of this to let the listeners know that we've obviously been friends for a long time. And I fucking hate how you've been on social media lately. So,
that's fair. To be fair, to just real quick on that, to be fair, I have kind of did some self-reflection on that too. And even I sometimes hate how I am on social media too. But there is, and we'll get on it, but there is a reason behind it.
Sure. And I think with anything, and that's what is important about these conversations, because even though you've been on the podcast before to geek out with me and stuff, and, I'll have you come back on and we could talk more about that, because that's always fun too. Sure. But I think this is an important conversation to have, similar to the atheists and Christians that need to sit down with each other and have not necessarily debates, but I think we all learn more when we talk to people we disagree with. And the unfortunate thing with social media, and it's not just you, it's, I would say the vast majority of the population, is they're so infatuated with, like, I don't want to say anger, but for lack of a better term, conversations that get your blood going. We like John Wick.
Stirring the pot. They love stirring the pot. They love
stirring the pot. Like, we like John Wick. We like Avengers movies. Like, we like destructive things. Okay. So it's in our nature to be tribal and animalistic and angry. The problem with social media, though, is you could just say whatever fucking nonsense you want, and people go back and forth in the comments and they don't solve anything. So when I reached out to you the other day, which thank you for coming on, and it was just like one post after another with you, and we're going to get into like your thoughts on these things. But I was like, I just got to fucking talk to this guy, because I know obviously Trump was just elected, and it's not like you were having these conversations prior to 2016 probably, but it's become more and more ramped up, not just with you, but with a lot of people on both sides of the spectrum, left and right. And I think if this Charlie Kirk thing has taught us anything, whether you believe in what he stood for or not, it's and then of course the assassination attempt on Trump. I mean, all this stuff, it's getting scary, especially like as a dad. I'm sure you could relate with is when you're not around your kids and your kids are in the hands of someone else. You never know when these people are going to snap, whether it's someone in childcare, whether it's a grandfather or grandmother, whether it's a complete stranger, where it's someone at the park. Like, people are just on edge so much. And I think a lot of it has to do with what we're going to get into today, which is the rise of social media. You think about all the problems that we've dealt with, whether it's school shootings, political violence, like all that. That didn't happen 20 years ago. Why is that? Is it because we had better presidents 20 years ago? No. Is it because like things were more peaceful 20 years ago? No. It's because we didn't have the ability to talk to millions of people every day through our phones.
It's funny. Exactly what you're saying. I was literally thinking about this because I knew we were going to kind of talk about this, and the best way that I can describe social media, right? Because I love the technology boom of the 90s. I think the internet is obviously one of the greatest things that could ever happen to humanity. Social media, once it went a little bit beyond, basically once it went beyond MySpace, when it went past AOL and it became Facebook, and now this, when you talk about social media, the problem with social media is, the good thing is it brought everybody closer together.
Sure.
The problem is it brought everybody way too closer together. We are now essentially in the digital, mindset of things. We are all roommates when it comes to social media, and we see way too much of each other instead of going out and conversing, like you said, in person with people just in our immediate communities and things like that. Some people, they don't have friends at all. They literally, their friends are on Facebook, and that's who they talk to. Those are their roommates. Those are their friends and family. And that's for me, that's the problem with social media, is it's brought us all too close together.
Yeah, too close in the worst possible way. Like if, for example, if like you and me and like all the guys were to get together again every single day for a week straight, nothing bad would come from that. But when we have these DMs and these comment arguments, it becomes a problem. The reason I reached out to you in the DM was like, yo, dude, listen, I mean, it's not just you, but like I feel like our relationship, our friendship has been affected. Not necessarily like I'm enjoying talking to you right now. And, I'd be more than happy to hang out with you next time I'm in Orlando. But it's this thing where I think before we would talk more, we'd game more. And it's not like I don't want to do that stuff with you and hang out with you. It's just I feel like some of the things that you've been saying, I don't know if I want to, I don't even associate with you because that's the wrong term. But you get what I'm saying? Like, it's your views are so, both of our views may be like, if people, when they don't agree on the same political ideology, which is fucking hilarious, that relationship becomes tainted. For some, it's very similar to like if we don't like the same movies. Like if you liked Marvel and I liked DC and we hated each other's movies, we would never talk about movies. And that's so silly.
Right.
That's so silly. Right. Every single human that has these beliefs or these ideologies, if someone doesn't agree with you, you like shut them out of your life, which is it's sad. And it gets worse and worse,
I feel like personally, I am okay with opposing views on most things. I like hearing when people don't like Marvel and don't like Star Wars. I do when they tell me that. The first thing I do is, what? You don't like the best fandoms in the universe? Well, sure. Okay. What do you watch? And tell me what your favorite movies are, because then I sometimes hear some, pretty interesting things. And I'm a big movie person. I always have been growing up, so I like hearing other people's views on that and stuff like that. But the problem with politics is, especially in today's current political theater, it's no longer a varying. This isn't me saying, oh, you like pineapple on pizza, I don't like pineapple on pizza, kind of deal. This is, I believe that this is wrong for humanity and this person is doing something horrible.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I see certain things and I can't, I can't keep my mouth shut about it. I feel like if I stay silent about it, if I don't bring any, even if it's bad attention to it, because any attention is still attention.
Right.
If I don't bring somebody's, at least one person to look at this situation and go, oh wow, that is kind of horrible. Look what's going on here. Then I'm just idly standing by and doing nothing.
Right. And that's, again, this is a lot of people share your same view where no matter who the president is, you feel that your life is getting affected, which, spoiler alert, it's really not you and me. I mean,
I'm not so ignorant to that. I do understand that. Personally, I would probably be okay. I mean, there are some things happening that do worry me a little bit. I'd be okay. But again, I care. It's not about just me. That
Sure.
I care more about the greater good.
Yeah. Well, and this is the issue, I think, with social media as well as news outlets, because every news, every social media post, every influencer that talks politics, everybody does have an ideology. Even right now, you and I have different views. That's an ideology. But we're so strong-willed to one specific side that when we say things on social media, if you don't follow politics as a whole, and you're not like looking at every bill and you're just reading headlines or listening to an influencer, you're only going to listen to the things that you agree with. And that's because social media does a really good job of feeding you shit you like. So if you're a fucking liberal or if you're a conservative, you're only going to see that shit, which means you're seeing Fox News, for example, but CNN is saying something totally different. Same topic. So who's right? And again, unless you're looking at both sides of things and you're reading through the lines, like I came up with the formula that I don't know if it's like patented or not, but I think this is interesting where it's speculation plus research equals opinion. Meaning everything you watch, a podcast, even this one, and every social media post, every news station, you got to go in with speculation. And then you need to pause the program and you need to go do your own research. And then whenever you come up with the final research, that's your opinion.
Right.
It's not. But the problem is everyone does that calculation. They watch a news cycle or they listen to a podcast and immediately, nope, I got the answer. This is correct. But you're not doing any research. You're not looking at both sides of things and using critical thinking. And I think that's the biggest issue that we have.
That is a big issue. I mean, I don't have a method like you, but very simply, and I don't do it for every single video. If it's just a video where obviously it's making the other person look stupid just for funny laughs, I'm just going to post it. But in most cases, if I see a video, even with like all the Charlie Kirk stuff that's been going on, where people have been posting just, certain clips being taken out of context of what's being said and then just showing it, I am always, when I tell people all the time to do this, I'm probably Google's biggest user because I'm the best Google user. I know more about Google. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Anyways, I use Google for everything.
It's such a fantastic program. It's so good.
Yeah, exactly. So I use anytime I watch a clip that's very divisive like that or polarizing. I hop over to Google. I look at keywords, which people, I don't know why. I didn't know that you could be bad at Google searching, but people really are bad at using keywords and search terms and things like that. And I'll type in something, Trump's. I just saw that again. Trump the other day, I guess, destroyed another cartel boat in the water that was trafficking drugs, supposedly. So, I said, well, let me look this up, and I'll type in Google, Trump shot down boat again, and then I hit enter, and I look at what the search results are. I see CNN, Fox News, the New York Times, and I'll go through and I'll read every article from every single one of those sites. I'm not going to sit there and read everything word for word detail, but I do, like to read all the important stuff and see who's saying what and come down to, what is commonly being reported amongst all the sources that seems that would mean it's pretty accurate. So I do that. I'm not just sitting here hitting share. It may seem like that, but it's not like that in most cases.
Well, I do want to, so I'm going to challenge you a little bit and push back on this because that sounds like a good use of Google as well as critical thinking skills. However, I never see a post except if I was to look at all your posts, I'm like, oh, he's a Democrat. Like I never see.
Okay.
So are you telling me all the research that you find, not one of them has been like, CNN's wrong?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying like CNN's not wrong or that the other sources aren't wrong. Okay. I'm more so when I share something, I don't really. First off, let me just make this very clear. When I share something, I don't care who it's from. I've shared things you probably haven't seen it recently, but I've shared things from Fox News. I've shared things from CNN. I've shared things from the, New York Post and different things like that. I don't necessarily care where the post is coming from. I just care if information in it is accurate amongst most media sources that are mainstream. Right. If I see a post and it looks very funky and I go to Google and I can't find anything within the first 10, 15 search results that match up to what I'm looking up, then I know that this is probably bullshit and there's no reason to post it. So I don't do that. Now, I get that a lot of my posts probably do look Democrat. And for the record, I'm a registered Republican, but I would say personally, I'm more of a progressive moderate with a little bit of left leaning in there, but I am not far left and I am not far right because I believe we're all part of the same bird. And if you're all standing on one wing too far, the other wing too far, instead of right in the fucking middle, then you're going to crash the bird. The bird's going to crash. Yeah. So but you have to understand that with this recent administration, there's a lot of things that are way more divisive now than it was when, George W. Bush was running and Obama was running. Things weren't as polarizing, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess, there is some truth to that, I suppose, but I think it's all. I don't know if it's because of the administration. Because things were polarizing with Biden. Things were polarizing with Trump before.
Yeah, of course.
Things were polarizing with Obama.
After Trump's first term, that's where. So, COVID, Trump, and there was another thing in there that pretty much. Oh well, yeah, obviously social media. COVID, Trump, and social media have all changed and Biden, and Biden as well, have all changed the political theater as we know it from what it previously was. But that definitely started within the first Trump term.
Yeah, well, and that was my point where I don't know if it has. Listen, let's not give Trump a lot of credit here. I don't think it has to do. I don't think he's the reason why the world is divided. Is he the reason why Gaza and Israel are at war? Is he the reason for Ukraine and Russia? The whole world is polarizing.
Well, he's not the reason they're at war. He might be the reason that for at least Ukraine and Russia that they're still at war.
Or the opposite. When's the last time Biden sat down with Putin?
You make a fair point. He didn't. Yeah. Because he saw him as a terrorist.
Right. Correct. And again, why is that though? Is it because Putin's an asshole? Maybe. Or is it because Putin just wants his land back because it was taken from him, and then the Biden administration took Ukraine quickly, brought him into NATO, so that way Putin would get scared to not attack Ukraine because the U.S. will back him up, even though that didn't stop him, right? But it's a very interesting topic for sure when it comes to war. But this guy Trump, like him or not, he sat down with the most dangerous world leaders. Whether he got anything done is irrelevant. The fact that you get that meeting and someone sits down, you have to think to yourself.
Is the point of the meeting to get something done, though?
Well, of course it is, but just because you have a meeting doesn't mean it's going to get done. That's with any type of meeting, whether it's business or politics, right?
The meeting for me is kind of concerning because I mean, again, this is my opinion, but
yeah,
ever since he's had those sit down meetings, it's almost like he wants to be more like Putin. He said it himself. He respects Putin. He's a powerful man. He's said about in North Korea how the people in the military stand up and give their leader attention, and he admires that. He likes that. He likes that kind of strength. And all of that with these meetings that he's had with some of these leaders, he admires that, and I think that's what he wants to go towards. So that's my problem.
yeah.
I mean the Ukraine Russia thing. I mean, here's the deal, man. Like, I don't think you'll find too many people who would say Putin is a good guy or a good leader. He's literally rigged elections and killed people to maintain power over the years. So I think a small subsection of the country that wants to break away and be safe and be free from his reign and what they consider his terror. If I look back at U.S. history, I side with Ukraine in that.
Sure.
We did the same thing.
You know, again, this is where I push back on a lot of Democrats when it comes to the Ukraine thing. Is like all this is a moot point because we shouldn't have got involved at all. We shouldn't have got involved with Iraq like back in the day. Like there's a lot of things that we've done over the years that we probably shouldn't have got involved in, but because, you know, the U.S. wants to be the big swinging dick, we decide to. And that's going to piss off a lot of people, including Putin and including, you know, China and North Korea and like all the little things that we do throughout these decades.
I like how you whispered it like they're hearing.
Well, they're probably listening. They're probably listening. This podcast is very popular over there.
I know.
But it's just a weird thing where we constantly get involved. And I think this is where I kind of am more on the Republican side, where we need less government involvement. And that's with everything. I don't
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
And I don't think that the Democrats have done a good job over these past 10 years, these 3 election cycles, where they haven't done a good job establishing the middle as good as the Republicans have. Because I think a lot of people, what you talk to that voted for Trump, well, why did you do it? Well, I didn't believe our government could be so fucked up that Joe Biden, very similar to Trump, probably isn't capable of being president right now. There's a lot of things I disagree with on both sides, but at least Trump works too much probably and is too much of a hustler and a narcissist and talks too much and goes to every press conference and does a lot of meetings. Like, he shows up too much. If he actually talked as little as Biden did, he'd actually be a better president because there'd be less bullshit about him on the news, I think.
I think if he just had somebody do all of his talking for him, he'd probably be...
Sure. Like if J.D.
That man
Vance
doesn't say a whole...
No, but here's the thing. The things that he does says either gets, you know... It either gets derailed and he goes on these rants, which some make sense, some don't. But the point is, though, he shows up too much versus Biden didn't show up enough. And I think if you go back and look at the news cycles and you look at the news as a whole, there's like less shit talked about Biden. I forget what podcast it was, but they threw up some statistic of like late night TV shows when this whole Jimmy Kimmel thing happened.
Yeah.
How many Biden jokes versus Trump? It was like quadruple the amount of Trump jokes. Now, you could say, well, Trump's given them a lot of material. However, I would say Biden falling asleep constantly and Biden doing all the crazy shit he did, like when I see and all the mumbling, no one talks shit about that, which is wild to me because, again, I go back to if you're Jimmy Kimmel, if you're Jimmy Fallon, if you're Colbert, like these are clearly left-leaning news organizations. If they just did like a Bill Maher, which Bill Maher is more liberal than left-leaning.
I love Bill Maher. I watch.
In recent years, he's gone very middle with it. And I think if every news organization and late night TV show hosts kind of lived a little bit more like that, having conservatives and liberals on his show, like he had Charlie Kirk on his show and vice versa. He went on his podcast.
Yeah.
So like you don't see a lot of, like Jimmy Fallon would never entertain that. Jimmy Kimmel would never entertain that. Why?
Well, I'm trying to
That's
think
the problem.
of. There was Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart did try to get what it was Elon Musk, right? Try to get. I know the Daily Show tried to get Elon Musk on, and they, with it being unedited or whatever. I think it was the Daily Show.
Yeah, probably.
And
I mean, there was some stipulations I remember reading about that where Elon wasn't happy with it or some shit.
Yeah, he backed out of it.
Yeah, but also that's like if you're not, if you don't want to have someone to your house, you probably shouldn't talk shit about them. And I think if I'm Elon Musk, same thing with Trump. There's a reason Trump doesn't go on CNN. He's right. I mean, because they've talked shit about him every single day.
But see, if that's the thing, though, don't you think as a strong leader, like here's the real like gist of all this, right?
Yeah,
he is causing more division. He's literally now named. He said that Democrats are all evil people. He doesn't care for the Democrats. Instead of picking and choosing where you're going and talking on, as a leader, wouldn't you want to go on answer as many different people from all different views, answer the questions they have? And you know what? Of course they're going to try to make you look bad. Every news organization is going to do whatever they want to do for their own agenda and their ratings and things like that. But if I were a leader of the country, I would go on every single one of those shows so I could show everybody in the country that, hey, I'm here. I'm answering all these questions, even the ridiculous ones and the ones that make me look stupid. And I want to see both parties unite together. And that's something that we're starting. That's where the division is coming in at now, because now it's, if you're Democrat, or Republicans hate Democrats and Democrats hate Republicans. And now they want to, who knows what they want to do, but talk of war and stuff like that. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think that a civil war within this administration is not plausible. I think it's very plausible.
Yeah. To answer your question, do I think a leader should do it? Well, yeah, sure. But no leader has. Not Obama. Obama didn't go on Fox. It's been like this since the I don't even know. I want to say like Reagan was. Media outlets have always had a certain political agenda. And I don't know if that's the issue here. I think the issue is us. I think 330 million people in the U.S., I think, are causing the division, because the Democrats and Republicans, they want us to argue. Because if we didn't disagree with each other, there'd only be one party. And what party would that be? It wouldn't be Democrats or Republicans, right? If we agreed on things, there'd be nothing to divide us, to separate us on issues like healthcare, taxes, gun control, climate change, immigration, like all the big boys that we vote on. Not one topic do these fucking two jabroni parties agree on. Not one. That is by design, my friend. If you talk to either a Republican or a Democrat, they are going to have issues on both sides of the spectrum where, maybe it's healthcare, or we talked about, it could be gun control or immigration or whatever. One of those things we're going to agree on. But as a whole, you have to pick red or blue. And that's the division. That's where I wish there was a little bit more love to the middle. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen because there's no money to it. But when I say it's 330 million people that are fucking it up, I'm going to reference one of your posts where it was Trump talking about taxes. He was like getting questions on taxes. And you shared it and said, "Fuck this piece of shit, LOL, such a fucking child. I'd trade Charlie Kirk in a heartbeat for this asshole." So I'm not saying you're the reason there's division, but that doesn't help. So hold on. Listen, first of all, very well said, because that is funny. However, that was posted on the 16th, of September.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Might be a little too soon for the Charlie Kirk thing.
I listen. Yeah, okay.
But this, again, I think is the problem, because I didn't look at the comments. I'm sure they're funny. But you might have people that agree with you and say LOL, and the people that don't. And the problem, I think, is you're letting, you, John, and everybody else on both sides, you're letting these folks drive a narrative that you're so convinced that Trump is an idiot. And whether he is or not, whether Biden is or not, whether Obama, he's the president, and you're not going to agree with everything he does. That's with every president. The fact that we don't get on board with the president and show the amount of respect, I think that's where the division is caused. Because now, whether it's Biden or Trump, you could see it with when Biden was president, all the conservative media and all these podcasters talking shit about Sleepy Joe Biden. And then now it's talking shit about Trump. If everyone just shut the fuck up for a second and just respected the president, there wouldn't be any news stories. If there was no social media, think about it in the 90s, right? Like, what would we do? It's 5 p.m. Instead of being on our phone, we'd go outside and play football. We wouldn't be home until the sunset.
Right.
There would be zero conversations.
Yes. Well,
Hence,
especially back in the 90s.
Yeah,
because we were kids.
But bro, I mean, but 90s, look at your parents. Were they sitting around a coffee table arguing with their friends about politics? No. It's because you're not getting fed these quick hits of dopamine of negativity and then getting fed on social media.
But you could also say, because again, I grew up in a very, very staunch right-wing conservative family who sent me to a Southern Baptist Christian school. You could also argue that the reason you didn't hear that happening when you were kids is because the people that were usually over at your house, maybe save a few, were probably in the same belief system or at least shared some of the same values or whatever that your parents did. So you didn't really hear it. Plus, again, you're a kid. You're not focused on listening to that stuff because as a child, usually, well, I'm not going to say this, that certain things don't affect children politically, but as a child, usually you've got other things to worry about, like play dates and video games and riding your bike. Yeah, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, it was not as popular in the 90s for sure, but also how much were we really paying attention to it?
I mean, yeah, true. Sure. But how many school shootings were in the 90s? Columbine? That was the last one. Yeah. 1999. Ugh, they called it Columbine Massacre.
99.
The point is there was way less violence back in the day. And yeah, we were kids. We probably weren't paying attention to it, but you can just go through the news cycles yourself on Google, and you could see there was less division. So what's the X factor? What was the reason? Well, I think it's a lot of things. I think number one, it's the food that. Well, it's social media for sure, and it's the food we're intaking. It's gotten worse over the years, and I think it's the lack of social interaction, and of course that goes back to social media. And COVID obviously was a big driver of that because we're all just addicted to our phones during that time of lockdown. And I think it's hard to get back to it. We go from Zoom meetings for a year straight. Now you don't want to go in the office, right? So what does that do? Well, it's very similar to if you decide to fuck a robot instead of a real human. You're not going to get the same love connection. And I think that's what's happening is we're so addicted to our devices and the negative dopamine hit we're getting that we forget that on the other side of that is a John. It is a Tony. It is a human that we can have these conversations, whether it's virtually or like we're doing now, or sit down and have conversations. And that's, I think, how we talk, less shit with each other because it's so easy to comment and you can't get a point across in a comment.
It's very polarizing. It's definitely very polarizing.
Yeah. Well, it's so easy too, right? It's so easy to just comment real quick and then maybe you want to ignore it for 2 days and you don't have to respond to me. And then it's like, wait a minute, I thought we were having like a disagreement where we can come to an agreement and you decided to ghost me in the comment section, right? Hypothetically. And so I think that is the big issue. But I wanted to go back to kind of a few things we talked about, which was I wanted to get your opinion mainly on the whole Charlie Kirk thing. What is your thoughts around that? This post aside, of course, I won't put this on your gravestone. It took a while. It took a couple late night show cancellations for us to realize that his family was right wing, but he was dating a transgender girl. I don't know how you would describe that.
I think it was a girl who transitioned from a biological male.
Yeah, he was dating.
So went male to female.
Got it. So he was dating that person, and then we now know he was driven by that hatred of, I would call it more left wing than right wing. So he was more driven being on the left side. It's almost like he was kind of like behind the scenes. This is just my guess, because you can look at history. But most conservative households, you know this, especially if you're Christian, it's God, it's faith, it's vote red. He obviously decided, nope, I'm more blue, so I'm going to go ahead and make a statement and prove my parents wrong. That would be my guess, like psychologically, if we could open that kid's brain. I don't think it was Charlie Kirk necessarily. I think, obviously, if Charlie Kirk didn't exist, he probably would have found someone else to release that anger on.
I could probably shed some light
Sure.
if you want to talk about that a little bit, because again, I did go to, not that I was crazy like that kid, but I definitely went, I had the same kind of upbringing that kid had, again, conservative parents, super right wing, went to a Southern Baptist Christian school, which is extremely conservative and right wing.
Sure.
I learned all my values and all that, and even good stuff. And I still apply some of the good stuff that I learned from all that in today's world. But when you are raised in that kind of environment, you start to see, it's almost like at some point you start to unprogram a little bit, because you're just fed so much bullshit from a book. I'm not quite sure where I am on my faith. I always say I believe in something. I have prayed before, things like that. But ever since spending 14 years, including kindergarten, in a Southern Baptist Christian school, you get fed so much what you think is bullshit after a while. Yeah. I think there's probably some stuff in the Bible that's based on some real things, but when you're reading something that's been translated over, thousands of years and passed down to generation, sure. There's going to be things that are lost in translation or translated to meet another group's ideologies, whatever the case may be. It gets overwhelming. And at some point you start to wonder, is this all right? Is this, what is this? And then you start to, I don't know, shift away from that narrative a little bit. That's kind of like when I got older, I was just like, well, this isn't right for humanity. And from what I've been told, this is kind of evil. And you stay, I don't know, you kind of navigate your path by that. But I can only imagine he just was probably just pressured, went to church every Sunday, shotguns with his dad all the time, was extremely close-minded, like I was most of my young life, and then met somebody that opened his mind up and said, hey, this isn't what the other side says it is, look at me, this is how I am, and this and that. And then, he went too extreme. You should then be able to open your mind and accept from both ends, but he just decided to make a very stupid decision.
I can't help but think those conversations, his girlfriend seemed nice, like she was worried in those text messages. So I don't think this was the case, but this is just my speculation, because I've talked to friends that have been around that community, LGBTQ plus. There's some anger in there, and it's definitely not their fault. But I think also a lot of people voted for Trump or voted conservative that maybe wouldn't otherwise, is because that ideology, and that's what I'm going to call it, is just getting pushed too much, specifically on young children. And I would imagine his girlfriend, Robinson's girlfriend, probably was like, this piece of shit has said this about transgenders, yada, 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 maybe for weeks or months or whatever, because she's so angry, or he's so angry, they're so angry. And they're so angry at this guy, Charlie Kirk, and everybody on the right side, because they think, they're homophobic and trans folks to just be eradicated. But that's not the case, of course. But this is the ideology that they're getting fed from the left.
Can we go back to something you said real quick?
Sure.
About, the LGBTQ plus community and some of their ideologies being pushed, especially onto young children, or whatever the case may be. Can you give me an example of that? Of young children being exposed?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there should be any children's books about any type of sex, not even heterosexual sex. But there's, you could just Google it right now, where there's literally books, children's books that that say it's okay if you're a boy or a girl. Like if you feel like you're a boy inside, but you're really a girl, that's okay. No, that's not okay because they're kids.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So, no, I agree that there shouldn't be any books about any type of, like, if you're going to come to that conclusion naturally on your own, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And I know plenty of people in the community that agree with that. They don't.
And that was kind of my point, is like, they're getting fed this from somewhere, and it's from the left. Because I had gay and lesbian friends. Like, I look at it, even though that was so, as I said it, I was like, that was like me saying I have black friends. That was horrible.
But, no, it's okay. You can't. It happens.
There's no other way.
It's unavoidable.
There's no way to get that across except to say that. But I do, and I've had these conversations. I'm like, bro, why don't you, like, you have a platform? Why don't you say this? And there's only one friend that listened to me, and his handle is Conservative Ant. And he's hilarious on TikTok. He's got millions of followers. But he's like one of the few that he's now Republican. He used to be liberal, but he's now Republican, and he's gay. And he openly talks about how batshit crazy that community has gone. And I think what we're forgetting is, again, the same thing. Take politics out for a second. Like, you're not important. Neither am I. Neither is a straight white man. Like, we're all just humans. And I think what Republicans get upset about is the liberals push this thing like they do with the homeless. Oh, we have to take care of them. They're special. No, they're not. They fucked up. How did they fuck up? Well, let's fix that issue. But our job is not to take care of every homeless person in the country. Our job is not to take care of every transgender person in the country. We're all human. We're all the same. Now, if you told me that someone that's transgender or homeless can't vote, well, now we got a problem.
Or get married.
Sure. Yeah. Like, I was totally against, with Clinton, Hillary Clinton and Obama, all of them talked about, even Biden, believe that a marriage is between a man and a woman. You can go back and listen to clips. But then they're like, hold on, we can get votes if we just say the opposite, right? And that is the fucking problem, bro, where they took that community and they infected them with that hatred against the other side, and just it spiraled out of control. Because, again, if you go back and if you talk to conservatives and liberals, both sides, I think we all can come to agreement where, listen, if you're above 18, do whatever the fuck you want. Get a tattoo. Chop off your penis. That's fine. But you cannot convince people that it's okay to do that when you're a kid. It's irreversible. There's a reason why kids can't get tattoos at 10. It's because it's a life-changing fucking decision.
I agree with that, but there's also the conversations that you should be able to have, and not necessarily like exposing them to it, but like, there's my brother is gay and also hilariously a conservative. So it's weird how that works out, but sometimes it does happen.
Yeah.
When I was a kid growing up, again, because I went to a Southern Baptist Christian school and they were very, very right wing. My parents never wanted me to know. Well, they didn't want me to know at a young age that my brother was gay. So it was always kept from me. And, I remember my sister Nikki one night was in the back of the house near where my room was, and she was on the computer. And we had just come from a holiday. It probably was a Christmas party from my brother's house. And we were sitting back there getting ready. I was getting ready for bed. She was playing probably Minesweeper or Solitaire or something. And, because of his mannerisms and always having, men around his parties and things like that. One day I finally just asked her, I said, hey, probably was like 9 or 10. And I said, is Randy gay? And she just goes, yeah, but you're not supposed to know. So don't say anything. And I was like, I don't care. Yeah. Like exactly, I don't care. Like why would we? Yeah. What my problem is, that they also, I agree. When you're 18, do whatever the hell you want to do. But at the same time, it's also okay to be represented in media and another. If it's okay for in a romantic comedy for a straight, male and a straight female to get married, then it's totally okay to have a movie where a non-straight couple gets married or a non-traditional couple gets married. And so much of the very far right thinks that any type of, like, you see it all the time in the Star Wars community, which is one of the most toxic communities of all time, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. They hate anything. Like, the Acolyte, they gave it bad reviews because I remember one comment said, yeah, it was great until they introduced the space lesbian witches in there, which I thought was hilarious because nowhere in that show do the space lesbian witches have a kissing scene. They have scenes that could be, I guess, perceived as intimate scenes, and they talk about their child together, but we find out that this child wasn't. It was created by the Force. Sure. So they get all upset about, oh my god, why I don't want to see that lesbian crap in my Star Wars shows. And it's like, if everybody just acted normal about it, just treated it normally, just like as normal as you would for everybody else, there wouldn't be a problem. Like, they're not hurting anybody,
right?
So leave them alone.
Yeah,
they're not hurting anybody.
No, yeah, I mean, you're right. I get it, and there needs to be inclusivity to every community. I think that the problem, though, that people have, I don't necessarily share this belief, but the problem with, like, people on the far right is they're obviously mostly Christian faith. They believe in God. Obviously, everything's between a man and a woman. So to them, I think they've kind of leaned back a little bit and got away from that. If you lay out the foundation of everything, kids are watching all types of stuff now, including Star Wars. Sure. And where people probably have a problem with it is when they're watching these type of things, you're creating problems in that household that doesn't need to be created. Meaning, if there is a lesbian couple that comes out of nowhere just because Disney wants to be a little more inclusive, now that parent has to explain that situation. Not that it's a bad situation, but this is where schools have gotten a little bit more aggressive with explaining that type of thing. I had a buddy that actually had to pull out his kid in middle school because it wasn't actually sex education, it was like some health class or something, but they ended up talking about anal sex. And he pulled his kid right out of school. Now she homeschools. So again, I don't even think we should be teaching heterosexual sex in school, let alone any type of other oral sex or gay sex.
I mean, here's the thing. Middle school, absolutely not. When you're in 12th grade, high school,
sure.
Most people, because of the way that I started school when my mom started me, and my birthday is over summer break in July, I was actually 18 years old when I was in 12th grade. And that's usually right around the age range of, you're going to be 17, whatever, by the time you're having
sex by then, for sure.
I lost my virginity at 16,
no question.
So no questions asked. But in high school, I think sex education to the limitation of what I remember, which is, hey, listen, you guys are going to go have sex. This is going to happen. You need to, wear a condom.
Condoms,
and you need to be aware of, these types of diseases and how you can get them and all that. And
anatomy. They taught us anatomy, most likely. Yeah.
You don't need to tell anybody that, by the way, if you don't want to put it in this hole, you can put it in this hole, or that hole. That stuff doesn't need to be talked about. I think most people figure it out pretty naturally by the time they're
or this is why I'm so strict about having our kid homeschool, is because especially in the next 5-10 years, I think it's going to get even more polarizing and more dangerous. Everyone's going to have their own ideology, whatever that is. We talked about this earlier in the beginning, but everyone's going to believe in one thing, whether that's right or wrong is irrelevant. And the fact that you leave your kid with somebody that might maybe believe in an ideology, for example, if there's tons of TikToks that I've seen, and I'm sure everyone could look it up if they want to see it, but there's been numerous cases where a kid goes into school and other kids have been told that, hey, if you're a girl but you feel like a boy, that's okay. And the teacher is the one affirming that. That's a problem. And that's because the teacher's gay. Okay, no big deal. But a teacher's job is similar to a counselor's job, which is advice, redirect to parents, have the parents come in maybe for the conversation. But instead, some people, just teachers as a whole, doctors as a whole, like firemen as a whole, there's shitty people everywhere. And if you just happen to have your kid in one person's class, and that's a shitty person, or that's a person that maybe got a pay decrease, spouse cheated on them, they spilt coffee on their pants on the way to work, they're going to have a shitty day. They're going to have a piss off, and they're going to take that aggression out on your kids. And I think that is the problem that people are having, which is there's this like laxy-daisy curriculum when it comes to kids, and there's no set like curriculum there like there used to be when we were kids. Every school is different. Like if you talk to different districts, it's all different. And it hasn't been changed in 50 years, except for adding things that are irrelevant, taking away books that, maybe represent how racist white men were. Like keep that shit in, man, because we were racist and that's okay. But the fact that you take it out and then replace
it's not okay, but we need to learn about it so that way we don't repeat it.
I don't mean it's okay to be racist. I mean it's okay to have the books in there, right? For people that was confused about that statement. Yeah, but I think that part is totally okay to experience and talk about that. But I think there's things that we don't need to be adding, especially to influence children one way or the other. We're all just people, and we're all the same. And the more we label each other a certain way, that creates division. We're putting each other in these boxes. You're liberal, you're conservative, you're this, you're that. It's toxic. It's dangerous.
I agree. But I mean, again, like we kind of talked about at the beginning, you have to be right now, if you want to vote, you have to be red or blue.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I'm a registered Republican. I've been registered Republican since I was 18 years old. And again, that's because I grew up in a very conservative right-wing family. And
so you've never voted Republican?
I have. Absolutely. I voted for John McCain.
Okay.
So I voted. It didn't. It did not. So I voted for that, and then I went through a period of kind of like my vote doesn't really matter anyways. So why waste my time voting?
Sure.
And then I went started going back to it, and then I mean, here's the thing, man. I get what you're saying about. Yeah, we all need to stop labeling each other. But when you can't deny Trump literally said on TV, like Democrats are evil. He doesn't like them. He doesn't care for them, doesn't feel for them. He thinks they're evil. And he thinks that they're the reason this country is in shambles. Saying something like that when you have such a huge following that's pretty riled up and ready to do some crazy shit, already has January 6th, that's way more divisive than anything you and I could possibly say on social media or any form of media. Because, again, who gives a shit about us?
Right.
That's the president of the United States. Why would you say something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that that's okay?
I think that's Trump. I don't think it's okay. I think that's exactly who we voted for.
Well, what I mean is, you like as a Trump supporter, right? You voted for him because he had certain things that you thought were good. As a Trump supporter, when you see him say something like that, or like, what was it? He saved 300 million people from fentanyl overdose in 1 year, when there's only 340 million people in the United States, so 40 million of us were very lucky because 300 million died or whatever. I mean, when you hear stuff like that, does that not in your mind? How do you not sit there and go, "Wow, he's a fucking idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about."
I do say that. So here's the difference between me and you. You ready?
Yeah.
Has Biden ever said anything out of line to you?
Yeah. He's said a lot of dumb shit. But the best part about Biden was the reason.
Like what?
Huh?
Like what?
I don't know. What was it? He stumbled over his words at one.
Yes.
I can't remember exactly what he said.
Yeah.
But he said something stupid. Let me tell you why. I just looked at him and I was like, "Why is this guy speaking?"
Let me tell you why you don't know. It's because you're not looking for it. Just like a lot of Trump supporters aren't looking for what you're talking about. Me, I look for that stuff because I don't think the president is important. When he says something stupid or when Biden falls asleep or mumbles, I don't care because they're not important. That's the difference between me and you, is you could see in your post how important it is that everyone knows that Trump is an idiot. Me, I'm thinking, if you really think President Trump is running this country just like you thought Biden was or Obama was, or pick the president, they're not. They're not. There's a lot of things they don't know. There's a lot of agencies that aren't connected to any administration. It would be chaos, because imagine every 4 years the CIA has to recap things with each president, and then the president changes what the CIA does. No, everything's been the same forever. The only thing that changes is every 4 years. So I don't think any president is important. So when he says something stupid, I don't care, because I didn't vote for him to speak well. I voted for his policies, and hopefully, which he's not delivering on a lot of things that he said, including the Epstein files and a lot of stuff like that. But that doesn't make me regret my vote, because the one issue I've had with politics as a whole is exactly what happened with Biden, which is it was proven to me that democracy has been taken away from us for a long time. And the Democrats themselves showed us that by just giving Kamala Harris the mic and turning down a ton of great candidates that I would have voted for, like a Bernie Sanders, even though he's a little bit too communist for me. But there's a lot of things that I really liked about him. And I would have voted for a lot of other Democrats besides Kamala Harris. And the fact that they handed the mic to her when you only saw her 10 times as VP in 4 years, that to me is like, okay, so if I'm a Democrat, this is who I have to vote for? Because I can't vote for Trump. That would be fucking crazy, right? But that's a serious fucking problem to me. So then when I looked at that, I was like, well, I don't really like Trump. I did vote for him in 2016, but I'm like, I'm not a big fan of his rhetoric and the things that he says a lot of the times and how he kind of goes on these little rants. I kind of respect it in a certain way where, again, you look at like every president aside from Obama, because him and Clinton were like the best in terms of public speaking. But then you look at the policies, they didn't have the best policies. So it's like, there's no president that's had it all. And I'd prefer a Trump that surrounded himself like with a Tulsi Gabbard that I, appreciated, RFK, which we can get into that a little bit, but there's a lot of things I disagree with. But there's also something that is blatantly obvious, which is there's something very, very wrong with our food. And if you go to any other country except the US, that is blatantly obvious. So if it was anybody besides RFK at the helm, people probably would have got on board with it. But because he has a history of quote unquote conspiracy theories and stuff, which some of them have not necessarily been proven, but it is kind of fascinating that we've had an uptick in a lot of different stuff, a lot of diseases, a lot of chronic illness. And it's not like our medicine has gotten worse, right? It's gotten better, clearly.
You do have a lot of people over the years that are, the anti-vax community. And so some of that uptick in things that shouldn't really be around anymore is because less people I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying there are less people that get vaccines because of misinformation and incorrect rhetoric that are saying things like, oh, it causes, it was proven so many years ago that the one study that came out that said that autism was caused by certain vaccines or whatever the case may be was 100% false. They literally came out. Like, science refuted it. They gave you the exact, correct studies. They gave you viewable data that shows it was incorrect, that these vaccines do not have a link to autism. They don't cause autism. They're completely safe. They've not caused any issues other than whatever labeled side effects they have on those vaccines. Yeah. And so, of course, you're going to have things like we've seen a couple different diseases that haven't been around for centuries all of a sudden popping back up because these people that think, oh, my kid, I'm not putting anything but good old natural stuff in my child. It is better than using proven science to enhance that. I mean, the medical field is literally there, not just to take care of you when you're sick, but it's there because advancements in medical science and things like that improve the overall human quality of life. Right. I'm not saying every single thing does, but I believe things like measles vaccines and chickenpox vaccines and stuff like that, improve your quality of life.
For sure. Yeah, no question. But I think there's also something that RFK has kind of shined a light on, and this whole administration, which I think people voted for. Can't speak for everybody, but I know I did myself, where I don't necessarily believe in everything with the autism thing or anything like that. But I don't necessarily not believe it just because there was one study. I think, talking about my earlier point about going in with every conversation with speculation, I think that's something that we can all learn from, where especially because, we have Cammie, she just turned 2. I forget what it was, but it was 4 vaccines in one shot. And now they're saying pediatricians don't recommend doing that. Okay, well, how many millions of people did get that when they were kids? But now we're starting to find out that that's not recommended. You need to separate the shots, right? And not combine them. Now, again, this is not me being a conspiracy theorist, because I think doctors were like, psh, it's no different than taking vitamin D and vitamin K together. Like, whatever. You could take them at once. It's fine. You don't know the side effects until the studies come out and you have a long-spanning history of 20, 30 years of data. So I think now we're at the point in 2025 where we've had enough data and we realize that Pfizer has been around for over 100 years. What diseases have they cured? I mean, I think they did polio. Maybe they came up with a vaccine for polio or smallpox. But aside from that, what are we doing here? How do we have the worst health of any country on the planet, but we're the most vaccinated and we take the most medication? How is that possible? How is it possible that we have all this medication? We haven't found a cure to a lot of shit, but we take the most medication. And by the way, close to 65% of the entire country has a chronic illness or is obese.
Yeah.
And by the way, it hasn't always been like this. What happened? We just talked about it, right? 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now there's more disease. But Pfizer's doing a great job. So let me take the Pfizer vaccine. This is where people's heads start spinning, where they're like, hold on, critical thinking. They've been around forever. They have millions of dollars. They're advertising on CNN and Fox and all these big news stations. So they're giving money to news organizations for advertisements. CNN brought to you by Pfizer. So do you think CNN is really going to come with a breakthrough news article saying Pfizer's full of shit? No, they're one of the fucking sponsors. This is where it's like, hold on. Now people's head is starting to turn, right? Where they're like, something's going on. I don't know if RFK is onto something, but I think a lot of other companies are lying to us because they want to make money. I think that's more probable. So let me vote for this guy instead. And I think that's what's happening is people don't know, people are scared, and they're making impulse decisions like voting for Trump. This is way bigger than I think anybody can comprehend. And I've done deep dives on a lot of this stuff and talked to a lot of experts in the health field about shit like this. And it's super fascinating, especially like the diseases that I've had and the medication that I got off of. And it was cured by fucking eating right.
I wholeheartedly agree with you that it's very obvious that our food is full of shit, for the best term I can find.
Yeah.
It's all kinds of GMOs, MSGs, they pump it, they pump it in there, and then they serve it to you so that way you keep eating it. It tastes good. You're gonna get fat. You're gonna get heart disease, whatever the case may be. It's all. I mean,
and then you're gonna take medication to solve it. Yeah.
Yeah. Correct. It's all. Well, that is what I consider population control. That is population control.
It's the American way.
It's finest. It is the American way.
It's the American way. Yeah.
I mean, I agree. There are things I have heard. The one thing that I agreed with RFK was when he said he wanted to stop allowing the FDA to just like approve all these different food additives and things like that they just allow in, and he wanted to start getting rid of some of that stuff. I wholeheartedly agree with that. He said that very well, but then he says some other dumb shit that's really, really dumb.
Yeah.
And it's like, he shouldn't, I don't think somebody with that, with all those conspiracy theories, I mean, he got torn apart when he was sitting there in Congress. He got torn apart. And I don't think somebody should be in control of our health when they are basing a lot of their stuff off of just unproven facts.
Well, but here's the thing that I've gathered from all of his quote unquote findings and the things that he's doing. it's not necessarily taking things away from us. It's allowing us to make an informed decision of what to take. Hundreds of thousands of people that got the J&J shot, that was rolled out because we were told we needed it. Like me,
Sure.
I became very, very upset about this whole thing when, I don't know if you remember, but I had a tumor in my lung. And it was a few months after I got the shot. Is it related? I don't know, and we'll never know. But I'm a very healthy guy. I look amazing, and I've never had a tumor in my lung. The only difference that happened during that time was that shot. That was the only difference. And I was forced to get it by my company.
That's the thing, though. Like, we think that when we're healthy and we eat right and we do things to the T, that, we're perfect. We're perfect on the inside and out. You could have had a cancer cell in there from birth that was just waiting to fucking pop into a tumor. And nothing you would have done could have done anything different about it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You've never had any issues your whole life until I got this shot.
Yeah. But also the shot, here's the thing with any type of shot that you take, or any medication rather, like even Humira or anything, and your body could have a negative side effect to that. Which is why, like, when I was
there's synthetic man-made versions of chemicals your body either
already produces,
is having trouble producing. It's like insulin is 100% like that. You need insulin if you're a diabetic.
Correct, but the problem is you're not. Here's the issue that I have with a lot of stuff, like Humira. Insulin's probably a bad example, but Humira I'll use because I was on that, where it suppresses your immune system, so you're more prone to
other sicknesses.
You're right. The issue with that, though, is you could solve the problem by not taking medication and figuring out the root cause of the issue. And that, I think, is what RFK is trying to stand for, is we don't need as much medication and things in our body. We need to fix what's in our food system, which is why he bans, dyes and a lot of the foods that these companies already produce better foods in other countries.
100%. Listen, I tell people about your Crohn's journey. I don't throw your name out there because I don't want to throw you under the bus if you don't want people to know about it. But
I talk about it too much.
He had really bad Crohn's. He changed what he ate. And I think when it comes to anything that has to do with our gastro tract or, our GI tract and all that, of course, that there are some things that are beyond our control that you may need certain medications for. But 9 times out of 10, if you just eat right or eat healthy and don't shove McDonald's down your gullet every day and go buy processed foods every day and basically everything that I eat most of the time, I've been trying to do better with that. But anyways, what I'm saying is obviously you're going to have problems when you throw shit. Like it's like when you drink too much alcohol. If you keep drinking too much alcohol, it's going to kill your liver. It's going to make you sick. Yeah. The only thing that can reverse that is to stop drinking and then let put better things in your body, like water.
Right. Things that your body actually produces.
But not from the tap, because there's too much fluoride in it.
Of course. And definitely not from a bottle because that's full of microplastics. So either way.
I gave myself a mini panic attack when I went up to Buffalo at the beginning of the year because I thought I was going to my girlfriend up there, she doesn't have a filter in her. She doesn't have water coming out of the fridge, and she doesn't have any filter. So I keep telling her, I'm gonna buy one of those filters because every time I go up there, I drink out of the faucet, and I'm like, this can't be good. Oh, these are still copper pipes too, and I'm like, I'll go buy bottled water. And then I got back from the store with bottled water, and I go, wait a minute, this shit has all that microplastic in there.
Yeah, we're screwed either way.
So then I looked up at this point, is there? Yeah, with the microplastics, there's nothing any one of us can do. Yeah. But from the time we were kids drinking out of plastic stuff, it's too late now. It's too late. I don't even know how safe my little my Arctic tumbler is with its ceramic wall, but I'm sure there's some kind of leaching product in there that's going into my water.
Yeah, we're going to find out in 5 years that's also killing us too. The underlining reason I think Trump was elected, just going back to that, was because more people have become more self-aware, I think, and maybe aware of the greed that goes on in this world, and maybe people believe too much in conspiracy theory, but I've always been a strong believer, as you know, you've known me a long time. I think it's better to be suspect before anything else about everything, about, the left, the right.
Question everything. Question everything.
I think it's a great motto and a great way to live, just because we don't know. And, I've been to see these doctors that are like the top of their field, and they've told me one thing and it literally gave me negative side effects, and it's not in their control. And I don't hate on the medical profession. I think that everyone's trying to figure this thing out.
Lobotomy, yeah.
Yeah. So,
let's scramble your brains up and send you on your way. You'll be fine.
Yeah, that was back in the day. That was like a revolutionary idea. There was ads about it in the fucking paper saying, hey, you know what you should get? Lobotomy. It'll solve all your anxiety. So
you won't know what's going on ever again.
I mean, doctors were prescribing cigarettes, back in the day when they first came out. Because back in the day, I think they were healthier for you, obviously. And then they realized we can make a quick buck if we,
I don't know, man. They didn't have filters back in the days.
That's true, but I would have rocked out straight up tobacco more than what's going on now in a Marlboro. The bottom line of like me personally, just so you know my view, is like I just think the less government, the better with everything. We talked a little bit about in the beginning, like what are the Mount Rushmore of politics, and it's mainly healthcare, taxes, gun control, climate change, immigration, abortion, and maybe education, right? And those things, we're never going to see eye to eye on all those things. And I think when people voted for Trump this year, they just believed more so with the right. Even if I was going to vote RFK if he was going to stay independent, but obviously he wouldn't be able to get the votes. Trump would crush him. But if RFK was to run on his own, I would have voted for him, even though he wouldn't have won. I believed more about fixing our food. Even though you put away the nutty shit, if there was 1,000 things that RFK believed, but one of those things was to fix our food, I would have voted for that. Here's why. This is how I vote, unlike a lot of other Democrats and Republicans, is I vote for today. Because when Trump gets out of office, he's not really making an impact at all. Neither did Biden, neither will the next president. 4 years is not enough to fix shit, because the last year, which is coming up soon for him, last year and a half, he's already thinking about who's going to run for president as a Republican, probably J.D. Vance. If it's J.D. Vance, then he's going to help him move the line, right? He's not worried about the country. They're worried about keeping Republican in that fucking stupid house. And that's why I don't have faith in any president. I just have to worry about what is going to affect me today. It's all, I don't know. It's all he said, she said. It's all bullshit. And I think you have to vote for what's going to affect you on the day-to-day. People were voting for shit that was out of our control. You're voting as a Democrat because of gun control. Okay, that's not going to change, buddy. You're never going to be able to take away guns. It's just not going to happen.
That's where this is where the divisive part comes from, right? Because you vote on those things, but you don't the majority of liberals voting for gun control aren't coming to take your guns away. Sure, the crazy far left, just like there's the crazy far right, have their extreme views and opinions on it. And gun rights and the Second Amendment is probably where I very much fall to the right on. I'm all about being able to protect your home, protect your family, and have that as a safety measure. It sucks that we have to have it, but I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But like they're not trying to take. They want reform. I agree with gun reform. I do feel like psychological evaluations should be a process that you have to go through before you can go out and purchase a weapon. I think somebody should make sure that you're at least somewhere in the realm of sane before you can just go purchase a gun, sign a background check, and wait 3 days just to make sure you're not angry at somebody, because 3 days is definitely, if you're a grudge holder, 3 days is more than enough time to make you not want to go do whatever you're going to go do it anyways. So, I mean, that's the thing. Like there's so much division because people vote based on these extremes that they think are going to happen, and they're not.
Well, yeah. Well, that goes with everything, right? I mean, you're a great example. You know, going back to your posts. I'm not going to quote one, but you know, if you said something like, "Hey, if you voted for Trump, you're a fucking idiot," or something like that. And that was the one you and I argued about a little bit. This was going back, and I've never said that to a Biden supporter. Here's why. Here's why. Is because I don't care. Again, going back to my original point, just like LGBTQ, just like, you know, president, just like RFK, like you're not important. Like whatever goes on in your life is your life. You don't need to be in the spotlight. And I think the problem with the far left and the far right is because you're trying to prove someone. You're trying to take that Christian background that you have. Let's say you're still Christian, and you're trying to tell me, the atheist, I'm never going to switch to your side. But as liberals and conservatives, they're trying to pull people in each direction based off these main points that we're talking about.
The big thing about like you specifically, right? I think you and I actually agree on a lot more things than we do disagree. And you are not when I post those types of things, you are not the person that I am speaking to. Yeah. I very much decipher at this point a big difference between the Republican Party and MAGA. Okay. Right. When I say MAGA, these are the people that wear the red hats every single day. Mm-hmm. It's their whole personality. They've got Donald Trump tattooed on their arms. They've got their T-shirts, and they're standing on corners holding signs. You know, honk if you love Trump. This, and that. Never before in the history of political theater, at least not any recognizable form of it, has there ever been something like that until the whole MAGA thing happened. That's weird in and of itself. Like what you're saying is you voted for this guy. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I can shine some light on the red hat situation, the reason why there are MAGA supporters is because Trump's just good at marketing.
Yeah, okay.
I'll give you an example. If, let's say, Biden was to run fully on term, well, let's use Harris because that was on the ticket. So if Harris was to run, she was to come up with something with blue hats, there would be just as many blue hats as there are MAGA supporters. Problem is, on the left, there is no brand. There is no MAGA.
Because they don't want to make that. They don't want to make that their whole personality. You shouldn't make a politician your whole personality.
Yeah, but listen, it is your whole personality. Like I'm looking at your Facebook post. You just don't have a hat. That's the difference. You're wearing that liberal, that blue on your shoulder anyway, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the fact that you just don't have a hat, it's just they're more vocal because they actually have something to talk about versus anybody on the left more often than not.
Yeah, but you don't see me standing out in street corners holding signs up and things like that. Facebook
but you're doing
for
it
me,
on Facebook.
And you're right. I am doing it on Facebook. But Facebook for me, right? First off, now ever since they made that changeover to where like if you had people who were following you, in order to keep them, you had to switch your Facebook over professional mode in order to keep that, or else all your followers would automatically be deleted. So I went ahead because I've never used professional mode and I just let it do its thing. I can see my posts. I can see the insights on my posts. Mm-hmm. Nobody's looking at my shit. Maybe you are occasionally just to laugh at how ridiculous I'm being at times, but nobody's really looking at my posts. Sure. I use Facebook as a form of
an outlet.
For me, that's my journal. That is my journal where I post my little rants and things like that. You know, I suppose I could do it in a regular book and then go back and read them myself, but it's easier for me to do it on Facebook. It reminds me every couple of years I get to go back and look at certain things that happen. So for me, it's more of, it's a journal. I am not using that platform at all in any such way to bring, I try to bring attention to some stuff that I think is very important. But yeah, some of it is a little bit of ranting and raving. But again, that's
what social media is for.
That's still that's not beyond. I'm not going around to rallies. I'm not going to rallies. I'm not holding signs up. I'm not wearing blue shirts, blue hats. I wouldn't, even if they made them, because that would be silly. It would be stupid to make something that whole personality. when I'm not on Facebook, I'm not walking around talking about politics and ranting and raving about politics and shit like that. I'm not going to go to Disney World with, get Donald Trump out of the office, blue shirt on, and walk around Disney. I see MAGA shirts and hats at Disney all the time. They've even made their own little MAGA ears now at Disney. And I'm like, Why would you do? Why would you do that?
Yeah, I get it. But also,
I don't put a sign in my yard for who I'm voting for. I don't want to announce that.
Yeah. But, here's the thing. If you like it and you do decide to do MAGA Mickey ears, the fact that you're shamed for it is silly as well. So it's just as silly to wear that shit, which I don't think it's silly. Very similar to where, like, I wouldn't think it's silly if you walked around with a Star Wars fanboy t-shirt. I wouldn't say, this guy's so gay, he watches Star Wars, what a little pussy. Right? Even if I didn't like Star Wars.
People do that.
Of course they do. And that's a problem. Again, going back to the entire structure of my personality is, you're not important, just like I'm not important. Whatever you do, I don't care about. And I think, again, this is the problem with politics as a whole, is because when I tell people I voted for Trump, I get hated for it, even though I voted for Obama, but that doesn't matter because Trump is Trump, right? But when you say you voted for Harris, I look at you like, okay. I don't write a post about it. I don't go... Well, you said fuck Trump supporters. I don't say fuck Harris supporters, right? Like, listen, there's the difference.
There's a big thing here that I kind of did want. I was hoping we were going to touch on it because it's kind of important, and there's a reason for my perceived anger and my insults on. So
I'd love to hear it if you have a second.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've seen some of the posts I've posted of, ICE agents grabbing people off the streets and things like that.
Sure.
Let's talk about that real quick. I'm sure you know a good amount about all that situation going on. Mm-hmm. I've seen the videos and mm-hmm. all kinds of rhetoric towards that. How do you feel about how that's being handled?
I think it's the same way. I feel the same way about police. I think there's good cops and bad cops. I think there's good doctors and bad doctors. I think there's good and bad in everybody. And unfortunately, there's a lot of decisions from individually on ICE that those are wrong decisions. However, I think it's better personally. This is just me trying to be both sides. Is I don't like it. I think it's bullshit, and I think it's wrong, especially because my wife was born in Dominican Republic and my grandfather's from Italy. I'm not a fan of it. However, what I am a fan of is putting a little bit of fear and lawlessness into what this country has become, which is not the land of the free anymore. It's the land open to anybody. And us Americans us actual Americans that, are legally here.
The ones that came here and took it from the Indians. Yep.
Well, we didn't take it. It was nothing when we were here. That we could talk about that too if you want. But we were settlers. That's how this and it wasn't. We didn't cross over in 1776, right? We came here, we settled, and then we established in 1776 the United States as we know it today. So there was a lot of work that went into that, obviously. And for those people that live there, great. There's a legal process that can come in, just like my grandfather did, just like my wife did. There's a legal process that come in. Problem is, we've kind of gotten laxy-daisy on that process, and especially here in Florida. That
legal process is actually now is mm-hmm. very hard and expensive.
Well, there's a reason for it, though. This is what I'm talking about the pendulum has shifted because we become this open border. Hey, have everyone come in. Let's just take whoever we want. Let's not police any border, whether it's Canada or Mexico or even Florida, like down in Miami. There's tons of people that come in from Panama and Central America that they shouldn't. We're not controlling our borders, and we haven't for decades. It has nothing to do with Trump. We haven't for decades. It's been horrible. And even Obama, you can go back and look at the millions of people that he deported out of this country. So every president have tried to control it, but it's gotten worse and worse over the years, and it becomes very dangerous. And I think this whole ICE thing that's happening, yeah, it's horrible what's happening to families that are getting ripped apart. But also, too, like, I'm a strong believer if you were here illegally and you have a kid that kid has to go back with the mom and dad. Like, you got here illegally, you fucked up by having a kid in a country. Because a lot of times people have a kid in a country because they know our laws. And they know if they have a kid in the country, they could stay here. And they come over specifically for that. Versus coming here legally like my wife did, like her mother did. And then they had my wife. My wife now has been an American citizen, and just like her mother. And there's a great legal way to do it. And we have an incredible process. But when you start getting lackadaisy on literally the most important thing, which is protecting our country from, even if it's one terrorist or 5 terrorists, 9/11, hello. I mean, there's there's really bad situations that can happen when you just let in one person. So the fact that millions of people have come in illegally over the decades, that's a problem. I don't agree with what is happening. I do agree with, however, there is going to be some fear now where you're not going to just walk from Mexico to the U.S. anymore, right? You're going to be a little scared.
Again, going back to the situation, the reason for the anger and the hostility towards the administration is that what is happening with ICE is directly from Trump. You say that Trump doesn't really matter, doesn't mean anything. To an extent, I agree that the president is usually always a puppet, and Congress is really the one that is doing most of the major stuff. But if the same side that the president's on is also the majority of Congress, then you can control quite a great big deal of things and have a lot of power. But a lot of what's happening with ICE and the orders that they're given, that's coming directly from Trump.
Right. And that's what Trump supporters voted for, by the way. He's doing exactly what he said. Yeah.
No. What he said that he was going to start with the criminals, the real bad ones, and we get them out and do all that. He didn't say that he was just going to start showing up at immigration hearings where people still have pending cases. Like, they still have, they get done with their court hearing and they're told, okay, you have another court hearing about this on this date at this time. We'll see you back here. And then as soon as they walk out the door, all these masked men in plain clothes grab them, put them in a car, then take them to God knows where, and then ship them.
Yeah.
So I know you don't agree with it completely, but how would you feel, especially now, because they did just announce that they can stop you based on how you look ethnically or things like that. That is now legal to stop and ask people based on how they look, this and that. How would you feel if you were, going down the street in Tampa, with your wife and your kid, with your kids in the stroller, and all of a sudden, because your wife looks Hispanic, or maybe somebody heard them say her name or whatever the case may be, and they think that she sounds Hispanic, or based on her skin color, they just pull up in an unmarked car, jump out, grab her, don't tell you anything, put her in the back of a car, and just take her somewhere. I mean, how would that make you feel in that situation? Because that could happen.
Well, maybe. Like, I'd love to know what cities that you're talking about in particular. Because I think if I was to put a banner on ICE and forget about what I think or you think, I think their goal is to round up as many people as they can, even if they prejudge, and then figure it out later. Now, is that the right thing to do?
That's not the right way to do it.
Of course it's not. Of course not. But this is the problem where we don't know until we know. You don't know that you're going to have a terrorist. You don't know. And that's a horrible thing, no question. And the fact that they take them and put them somewhere else is horrible. But
I've seen videos where they literally show a video of the person they're arresting. They give a name, what he's done, so you can look up and verify all this.
Yeah.
And then they say, we caught this person today and got them deported, so hooray. But
there's also radical cases.
You're seeing so many cases where that's not happening with other people. They're just being grabbed. They don't have anybody with them. That's why people standing by are, what's your name? Who can I call? Who do I need to notify? Like, that's not right at all. What is happening with ICE, and it happens a lot more than I think it doesn't. That's very scary grounds of very similar things that would happen in Nazi Germany. And we're kind of working our way toward. How do you not see everything going on and kind of see that this is trying to be changed to like more authoritarian?
Because, again, this is where I think we disagree heavily, is even if it was, let's say Trump is a complete psychopath, but people do forget he did run the country for 4 years already, and it was fine, FYI.
Yeah.
But let's say he does turn this into radical Germany, okay? And captures 4 million people and puts them in bunkers and completely gasses immigrants. He's not going to be president after that. That tyranny is done. It's 4 years, which means we have 2 years left.
I think he's not. So you don't think he's serious about wanting to try to stay in after his?
Well, he
term.
can't. There's no legal terms that allows him to.
Well, no, he can't. But he's said on literally in a White House interview with another. I forget who was sitting there with him. We could I could suspend elections during a war. And
Sure.
then. It would be Emperor Palpatine situation in episode 1 where we're not having elections right now because we're going to use emergency powers while we've got this war going on. I mean,
yeah. I get it. I do. But I don't worry about the future very similar to I don't worry about the past. Like, I don't worry about what he could or couldn't do because I look at him like he's Conor McGregor, okay? He's trying to sell tickets to the fight. He's really good at talking shit. Sometimes he goes off the cuff and doesn't make sense. Sometimes he does. But he's just trying to sell tickets. He's trying to sell tickets to the Republican Party. You know what I mean? And he's doing a great job, and he won. So I look at him like a showman, and unless it's a policy that I see going in a bad path, like the ICE thing is a very rare example. I'd love to know like your take on some other stuff, but I'll talk about the ICE thing one more time, which is, yeah, it's bad, but also it got to this point. Like, imagine if we never had a immigration problem. Let's just put ourselves in that world, okay? We've never had an immigration problem ever. This wouldn't go down. Can we agree to that?
I mean, sure.
So, but how did we get to this point to where even if he gathers from ICE, even if he gathers 1 million immigrants this year, let's just say hypothetically, how many of them are going to be terrorists? Let's say it's 1,000. Let's say it's 1,000 people out of 1 million people that he grabbed. Do I think those other people should be in prison or kicked away to their country? No, I think they should have the right to become a legal citizen of the United States. However, if a kid was born here and his parent came here illegally, they broke the law that we have in place. So both of them, the whole family, has to get kicked out. Because if we don't do that, then we're going to have millions of illegal immigrants here. And that's a problem because out of those million people...
I'm not disagreeing that we shouldn't have a process and that when somebody is found illegal, they should be removed. I agree with you on that.
But how do you know they're not illegal when you see these videos? Do you see the behind-the-scenes footage?
Could be bad people that shouldn't be here. But you can't purge of the entire, grabbing everybody you see that's brown or Hispanic and then just holding them or shipping them back until you figure it out later, like that guy that they sent to an El Salvadorian prison.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
Was never supposed to. Yeah, okay. Well, when you see that that's happening, when it happens even just once, that should be enough for you to take a step back and say, okay, whoa, we're doing too much now. We need to dial this down a bit and do this the right way. Give people their due process.
But what is the right way? If you had your pick, what is the right way? Just so I know your view.
Well, properly identify. So, okay, you grab these people, right?
Yes.
First of all, it should be just like with any other thing that you do. Mm-hmm. You should have a warrant to go arrest this person. You need to announce that who you are, first of all. Mm-hmm. Stop with the face masks. Cops that come knock on your door to serve you a warrant, they don't wear face masks.
Sure.
They don't need to wear face masks. If they're doing it the right way, they have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
They serve you the warrant. They take you to a prison or jail or some type of place where they can then properly interview you and vet you, check your documentation, check history and all that, and see what's really going on.
Yeah.
And then go from there. And seeing it, when you go to jail, when you get arrested, I'm not going to hide from that fact. I've been arrested before. When you go to jail, right, the next day or the same day, depending on when you're in there, you go and see a judge. Mm-hmm. The judge makes determinations based on what happened. And then they set court hearings to do all this, due process and all that. Due process is for anyone on this land. It's not just for the citizens in the United States. It's very clear in the Constitution. Due process is for any peoples on this land. They should be able to see a judge and find out exactly what's going on. And then if they're truly have no business being here, okay, great. Where did they come from? Send them back home, not to some random prison camp in El Salvador.
Yeah. Well, and I agree. I 100% agree. I think there should be a better system involved. But again, I go back to I voted, just like a lot of people did, because they want more immigration control. And unfortunately, this is the president that we got, and this is the decision he's making. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm hoping that there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Because just like the decisions Biden made and every president before him, there's going to be things we don't like. And unfortunately, this is just where we're at in the country. And I go back to, you could blame it on Trump, you could blame it on ICE, you could blame it on a lot of people, but how did we get here from the get-go?
I hear what you're saying. But
so that I think is the frustration and the lack of empathy that I have, because if it did happen to Brenda, I wouldn't blame Trump. I would blame every fucking person that came beforehand, because we've gotten to this point where we have so much hatred in the country that now you have the right side, the Republican side, retaliating the best way they know how, which is, sure, we can grab 1,000 people a week and put them through courts and all that. You think we have the infrastructure and the manpower to do that? No, which is why they're going batshit crazy. Doesn't make it right.
Where you're saying you voted for Trump, right? You're like, I voted for this because this is the policy that I wanted, right?
Well, I didn't vote for this specific thing that he's doing, but
correct. What I meant was, you're saying you voted, you wanted better immigration reform and control,
correct,
and you didn't realize that this was what you were going to get based on how you were voting. And what I'm saying is, the reason I didn't vote for Trump, I don't like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden. Obama was probably my favorite Democratic president of all time. But I didn't care about the politics. But there are those of us who saw Trump's policies, like immigration reform and control, and knew from how batshit crazy he is that there's no way he's going to do these things properly. And anybody who thinks that he's going to do these properly obviously isn't paying attention to him very well. So that's what I'm saying is, you're saying, I didn't realize that this was the way it was going to be handled, and I don't necessarily agree with it. And I'm saying, well, I kind of, not to the exact T, but I kind of knew this was how it was going to be handled. And so it makes the kind of how you talk about the post, the whole reason we got together to have this conversation. The reason I get so upset about it is because I see all this and I say, this is why I voted against Trump, because I knew that this was going to happen, and I don't think this is right. And I see what's happening now. I go, how can anyone still support it at this point?
Well, I think if you ask a few people that if you have any Republican friends, that if you were to ask them, they probably
I am Republican.
Well, that voted Republican, I should say. That voted Republican. You saying that you're registered Republican but never voted Republican except McCain, that doesn't. You have no leg to stand on. You should stop saying that to people. Because you're a registered Republican, but you vote Democrat. So you're a Democrat. It's all good.
I'm a progressive moderate.
But fucking man up to Harris, bro. But the point is, I think if you ask a lot of people, like the Epstein files, let's talk about that for a sec. So he said he was going to release them. Now it's like they didn't exist. And here's what happens. Again, this is me being objective. He said that to get votes, and it works. And I don't hate him for lying because, haha, spoiler alert, every fucking politician lies. Every politician has, and they always will. And that's why I don't look up to these guys like Kim Kardashian. I look at him and I say, if there's one or two things that I like that the other candidate doesn't like, I'm going to vote for that person. Even if I don't like his sexual identity or how he masturbates or what he says in a bus that's recorded, I don't give a shit about that because everybody's human, everyone makes mistakes, and everyone lies. And he lied about the Epstein files, and now we're not getting it. What am I going to do? Am I going to unvote for him? It is what it is. I voted for a few things, and I hope he fucking follows through on that stuff. But again, like a lot of all the politicians, he's probably not going to follow through with a lot of stuff because you can't get anything done in 4 years. That's the problem.
I listen. That's true. But if you're doing, first of all, most presidents, when they're not necessarily liked, but at least well tolerated, usually for the last few decades have spent their term consecutively, one right after another. And 8 years, I think, is plenty of time to get shit done. I like that after 4 years, after 4 years, if you're absolute dog shit, like I thought Trump was after his first term, was like, thank God this will never happen again because America can't be crazy twice. Now he's back in, and now it's like there's a reason he didn't get a second term after the first one consecutively. People thought he was dog shit. This last election, we're taking into account. We don't take into account how many people didn't show up to vote this last election because they're just so tired of how horrible both choices were. Like you said, the Kamala Harris thing, that threw a lot of people into, well, now I'm just not going to go vote because I can't stand either one of them. And for me, it was the person who I believe would do the less damage to the country as a whole, which
that's a problem that's what we're forced to do. Like, can you name a couple things that you enjoyed about the Biden administration? Like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything that's like, oh, that makes sense?
Yeah, well, what I liked about the Biden administration,
I don't mean demeanor or anything. I mean, like, from a policy standpoint.
I didn't care about his policies that much.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to do much. It wasn't going to affect much or do much. It wasn't doing much damage. I don't know, man. My paycheck hasn't changed much from the Biden to Trump administration. Nor has my 401k.
Yeah, from same thing with Trump.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, well, I mean the money from our deficit that we've decided to outsource and
I like presidents that don't like things that I get what you're trying to say. Like, well, it doesn't really matter what matters now though is that I'm watching human beings get pulled off the streets and our country moving away from a democracy and something towards more authoritarian. And that is something that maybe right now doesn't affect us yet. But in 4 years, depending on what happens, that could affect us all a lot.
Which is why us voting and us having a true democracy is so important. And it's so hypocritical that you just said that, considering the whole ICE thing and immigrant. These are people that, again, if they were legal citizens, which to my knowledge, there's been no cases where they're legal. If they went through the process, that's great. That's amazing. Amazing that you've waited.
So what about people who are in the middle of the process?
Hold on. Like how did they first? Hold on. How did they first get here?
There is, if you actually go and look up what the government classifies as illegal citizens and the different things that you can do to become a citizen. So some illegal citizens, or as you guys would refer to as illegal citizens, some of them come over here as refugees for amnesty or things like that.
Sure.
They're not legal citizens, but they have applied for amnesty to get them out of a terrible situation.
Right.
And then while they're granted that amnesty or that, that temporary status here, they're still considered illegal, which the Trump administration considered any run-in with illegals during the Biden administration, even repeat run-ins with certain immigrants or illegals, as its own individual thing. So the numbers were inflated quite a bit from that. But anyways, long story short, a lot of these people, they're here because they have a temporary amnesty, but are still considered illegal. And when they go for their court hearings because they are also at the same time working on doing it the right way, they're in the middle of the process. They're here temporarily while they work on this process. They have court hearings to show up and hopefully become a citizen. And when they get out of these court hearings, they're being grabbed, they're being taken, thrown into some internment camp, and then shipped to who knows where if they, whatever process they have. So
again, a few cases, and I disagree with those, and I'm with you 100%. I think my point is, though, which you just made very clear for me, so thank you, is they do come here as refugees. They do come here illegal. And whether they stay here or not, and they're waiting for course, they're still illegal. They're not citizens. And again, I'm throwing out numbers here. Let's say if there's 1,000 people a week that come in, if there's one criminal, that's too many, bro. And we do not need to be the fucking place where everyone needs to come to get away from their shitty country. Because here's how you make a country great. Isn't
ready? That what we advertised America as? Like the whole 50s, 60s, the American dream. Yeah, the 20s.
Dude, that day is dead. Do you know why it's dead now?
Because we got too many people here?
No, it's because we have open borders. We have open borders, and people just come in here illegally. And out of the couple thousand people that are great human beings, there's also a lot of shitty people, just like everywhere else. And we don't need more shitty people in this country. So we have to button up immigration. And that is the problem where you could look at the gumball theory by, I forget his name, but there's a gumball theory on immigration. Just Google gumball theory immigration. And he blatantly explains it perfectly and beautifully to where we can bring in 1 million people a year. We're not going to solve any immigration problem. We're not going to help Ukraine or Russia or South or North Korea. We're not going to help any of these people that leave their shitty country to come to ours. We're hurting the country when we do that. And that's what people voted for. People voted for, I'm with John. I'm with my wife. I'm with my neighbor. I'm not with a fucking refugee that wants to come in because North Korea sucks. That's what we cannot handle every single person coming to this country to want to be a citizen. Of course you want to come here. It's fucking awesome. But we've also been doing this thing for 300 years, bro. We've been running this country and perfecting it for 300 years. There's a lot of other countries on the planet that have been around longer than us. China, how are they doing? They're not good. So they've run their country a certain way. And we cannot take 5 million people from China and bring them to the U.S. Can we?
No, of course not.
Of course. But those people want to get the fuck out of there. It's a communist country. But we can't handle that. That means we have to button shit up and we have to tighten it up. And I think that's what people voted for.
You're not wrong. I do think that a lot of people voted for that. But just like you can see how some of my comments are and stuff like that. If you go to any, you watch some of these clips of ICE agents taking people away and read what some of the conservatives say, it's just as bad. It's just as bad. They say crazy. Look at the newscasters saying we should just kill homeless people.
Yeah.
You know, that was what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Why would we even
consider
this is
that?
Where Republicans or conservatives want to vote for the betterment of themselves and their immediate family and what's immediately right around them. And Democrats or liberals tend to want to vote for the betterment of all humanity or things outside of their immediate ecosystem and things like that, which based on the different policies for Republican and Democratic presidents, that's pretty accurate, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's where
I actually agree with that 100%. And
for me, I am a more of a betterment for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that means letting in, we've got 1,000 immigrants that want to come in that we're going to let in, and one of them might be bad. Well, maybe he was bad because of where he was coming from, but when he gets in here, he's not bad anymore. Like, you don't know what that possibility is going to be. And again, we can, I'm all for better vetting processes and things like that. I'm all for that. But to sit here and just purge everyone out and then, basically, kick them all out and let God sort them out kind of deal I don't think that's the right way to do it. I don't think that's good for humanity. I don't think it's good for the United States. And I think a lot of the stuff that's happening right now is I think Russia and China and North Korea having meetings together that Trump's not happy about. That kind of tells you something. They see how weak the U.S. is right now because of how divided it is. And that's like a golden opportunity.
So hold on. So the whole thing with them meeting, they've been meeting for years, well before Biden administration. So again, this is where I go back to, it's not about Trump. It's about the shit that we've been in for decades is why we're here. And you cannot, when I say you can't solve anything for 4 years, it has nothing to do with the man.
because you're religious and your personal beliefs, and this is one big thing for me, which is again, growing up in a very Christian environment, one thing that you're taught when it comes to the United States is the whole reason the United States was started was separation of church and state.
Sure.
That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
And some people can't do it, and I've again had this conversation with somebody else. But I believe you should not be letting your personal religious beliefs make your political decisions or your laws or your policies. You should not. You should be able to separate your own self from your religious beliefs and say, you know what? Hey, if I don't believe abortion's right, but it's not my job to tell everybody else that abortion's not right. So I should not be making policies based on whether or not abortion should be allowed based on what the Bible says.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. It's an interesting topic because I'm torn with it, and I always have been. But you're still killing a human, no matter how you slice it. So and as a dad, and as you know, there's no like good year for it to be okay for you to kill your kid, right? Like, it's not like when they turn 5, you're like, you know what? I think this is the day where I'm sick of it. I want to kill him. To a lot of people, there's no difference between that and killing a kid at 8 weeks in utero. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, but here, the problem is what we define, the people who disagree, right? The people who are pro-choice, they don't agree with you that right within those first however many weeks and whatnot, that it's a true person, right? So it's not to them killing a person. And it's very much, that is split kind of down the middle on how that is perceived. But
and as someone who went through, again, I think this is where it comes to A, education, but B, I think a lot of those people that have those views aren't mothers and fathers. Is that fair to say?
I don't know. That may not be true. Maybe they are mothers and fathers that don't want more kids.
Sure, and I appreciate that, population control. But let's use you as an example. You have a kid. Let's say your wife, or you'll say you were married. Let's say your wife at the time was pregnant, and she said, I'm 8 weeks. I want to get an abortion. I don't want this kid. You disagreed with that, right?
Okay, let's say I did.
Let's say you do. How do you feel about that? It's her body, so let her do whatever. Even though it's half your kid, let her do it.
Yeah,
you're married. Everything's good. It's her body.
It's her body. 100%. Okay.
Now put yourself in the situation you're in now. You have a kid. Could you imagine a world without him in it?
No, but
this is the different. But here's my point. Let me get to this and then I'll let you. The point is, you don't know. You're not given that human, whether you think it's 8 weeks or 10 weeks, whenever life begins, which is someone who went through IVF, I could tell you it begins a lot sooner than you think. And I couldn't imagine just taking that embryo and throwing it in the trash. And it's hours old. I could not imagine because of what I got out of it. So this is where I don't think people are educated on the fact, like if everyone had a kid and then you ask 1,000 people this question, I don't know if every single person would say, you know what, I think I'd rather not have this kid in the world.
You also have to look at it from the point of view of people who, are in a bad situation. They had sex, okay? I get it. There was no condom. There's no contraceptive.
Sure.
They used the pull-out method. It just didn't work. They find out they're pregnant. They are living in a studio apartment that they can barely afford to make off of their minimum wage, and they find out, we've got a kid coming. What quality of life is that child going to have when, especially now with cutting government-funded programs like WIC, which me and my ex had greatly needed at the time of having our baby back when I was 19 years old, and things like that. What quality of life is this child going to have? People take into that consideration. I don't think everybody's out there just going, oh, I just want to have sex and fucking get it yanked out of me or whatever. Sometimes people, in the heat of the moment, things happen. We've all done it. We've all been there. Things happen in the heat of the moment. You make a decision, you find out you're pregnant, and then you make calculations of what am I going to be able to do for this child? How am I going to be able to
listen? I get it. As parents, we still probably do that. Like I do that on a daily basis, and I make plenty of money. But again, I get what you're saying. I would challenge you to say this is where education needs to come into play, because if that is the case, we're raising shitty humans.
Oh, we definitely are.
Where it's a fact.
The education system is by no. It's gotten so shitty since we were in school.
To me, it's all connected. Yeah, to me, it's all connected because I remember what it was like being a kid, and I remember I knew if I banged a girl without a condom, she would get pregnant, and I would have to be a dad early. So I didn't do that. I wore a condom. So people that aren't wearing a condom that end up getting pregnant, I personally, this is my belief, I don't think it's okay that they just get to say, I just can't afford it, so let me kill this thing. Because we need to get better at educating these people to where this is the consequence. And the consequence is you have to now raise that kid in a studio apartment because you made the bad decision to fuck without a condom. This is the problem.
Okay.
Where I don't think
that consequence is now affecting that child. Now you're effectively saying this child has to go through that.
John, listen to what you're saying. Listen to what you're saying. You're raising that kid in a studio apartment in fucking whatever, Iowa or Utah or California, New York, and this kid gets to live, buddy, versus not. So this is, even if they're living in Chicago, that's still better than not being alive. And
is it?
Yeah.
By whose opinion? Yours?
No, not mine. It's you and I. It's everybody. You talked about in the beginning of this podcast about humanity and doing what's best for humanity. To me, I think of that's a human to me. Like that is, it could possibly be a human one day. It could possibly be my daughter. It could possibly be your son. It could possibly be me. Like imagine if my parents aborted me, bro, like the world would be a shittier place because you wouldn't have me in it. That is,
I can agree with that. That is 100% true. But think if Charles Manson's mother had an abortion.
Sure.
Well, the world would also be a better place.
Or it has nothing to do with him being born. It has to do with his, him being raised. And that's where we have to get better and be better humans, right? And take care of.
I get what you're saying. There's so many different variables,
of course.
Of course. But at the end of the day, I still think if, it's their choice. It should be their choice. If you don't agree with it, you don't have to agree with it. And you don't have to get one.
Right. I get that. But see, as a father, that's fascinating to me because that means you're okay with you made the right decision. Because here's what you're saying. You're saying is you have sex with your girlfriend. You talked about having a kid. You want a kid eventually. You decided to get drunk one day on some wine and you had a great time and you decided not to pull out because you both, you were so close. You were right there. Boom, it happened at the same time. It was the best sex ever. You know for sure that's going to be a kid. 12 weeks later, you guys are so excited. Then one day she changes her mind. But you still want that kid. You have no say-so in that?
Oh, I always say, I mean, that is a conversation for you to have with you and your significant other. But do you think that every abortion is between two people who are in a healthy relationship that are going to sit down and discuss raising a child and how to do this the proper way and things like that? No, most people getting an abortion is probably a single female, that one night stand, whatever the case may be. Who knows? Maybe there was sexual assault involved and absolutely doesn't want to carry this baby.
Well, now that's a different situation, of course, I think, because obviously that wasn't her decision. Right? But you look at all these cases where there's like girls that they're 30 years old and they've had 4 abortions in their life. Okay, that's a problem. So that's a problem. Like that means that means you don't like condoms, which I could appreciate.
Buddy, I get what you're saying, but going back to what you said earlier, right? Yeah. When we care about what's right for us and our family at the time when we're voting and things like that, that's kind of the conservative view, right? I only care. Then why are you worried about what Josie in the trailer park is doing with her 4 abortions or whatever she decides to do. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect you.
And
so why are you making laws on it? Why are you voting on it?
Voting for it and making laws are two different things.
But why are we worried about what somebody else does that has no effect on you?
Like this whole ICE thing that you're upset about, that doesn't affect you. So why are you voting for it?
It could affect me.
How?
My girlfriend's, her family migrated here from Mexico. She's got a very Hispanic last name.
So they
legal? Could just decide one day she's here legally.
Okay. They're all a problem.
They're not just, you think that they're not just they can literally stop and grab you just for looking Hispanic.
I want to know a case, and you could send this to me afterwards. I'd love to know a case where someone was kicked out of this country and they were legal. Forget ICE for a second.
We already talked about the one guy who got sent to the El Salvadorian prison. We already know that that's happened. Right. That's already happened. That's one too many times. That's one too many times.
Sure.
That's already one too many times.
Okay.
There's actually, I will find it and send it to you. There's actually a story. This guy, he's pretty sure veteran or whatever. He was in the military. He even voted for Trump. And something happened. His girlfriend was absolutely here legally, or his wife. They have kids together. And she was literally grabbed right off the street in front of him and deported to Mexico without any reasoning whatsoever. I'll have to find that whole case. But there was a whole thing about it. Now he says, I would have never voted for this man if I knew that this was how things were going to happen. Because you're not upset about it until it happens to you.
But I guess you could say that with everything: healthcare, abortion, taxes. So,
but see, that's where my anger comes from. Is it hasn't happened to me, and I am upset about it because it's happening to other people, and I don't think it should happen to those other people.
You're making my point for me about the abortion thing. Go back to that. Is it doesn't affect me, sure, but what if I decide I want a kid, and then Brenda decides she doesn't after 12 weeks in utero?
I don't think you guys. Well, that's obviously, again, what are you going to do? What happens then?
But my point is, here's my point.
You force her to have that kid, and now look at this. She has this kid, and obviously this is not your guys' situation. You guys are a great couple. I love seeing your stuff online, and I love seeing the videos you post. But let's say this was a different situation. Let's take that route. Let's say Brenda got pregnant 12 weeks in. She no longer wants to have the baby. You still do. She's absolutely decided, you know what? I don't want to do this. I absolutely don't. But the law states that you have to have it anyways, and you want to have the baby. So you kind of push her into doing it. The baby gets here. She gets resentment towards you for making her have this baby. She feels like
we obviously break up right afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, it would ruin your relationship.
Sure. Then it was already ruined from the get-go when we didn't decide on having a kid, in my eyes.
Correct.
Right? So, but my point of that scenario is, you asked how come I care about the chick in the trailer park well, again, it doesn't matter if it happened to you or it doesn't happen to you. It could happen to you. And I think that's what you're talking about with ICE, and that's what we're talking about with abortion, and with all these type of things, gun control, every single thing. You can go down the line. Nothing has probably happened to you on any of this stuff negatively, but you see it go down.
Gun control, yeah. No, actually, gun control has affected, like, my girlfriend lives up in Buffalo, and she would like me to move up there. Buffalo, you can own weapons, but you have to register them, and you can't own any magazines over 10 rounds. All my magazines are over 10 rounds. I think it's stupid. I would never live in a state that's going to tell me how many bullets my gun can hold, because that makes it more dangerous or less dangerous or whatever. I would never.
By the way, it's because it's a blue state.
Yeah, no shit. I would never live in California. I would never live in New York. Now, if New York were to, kind of draw back on those a little bit, when I think of gun reform, again, I think you need to be properly vetted through the system, have an evaluation, things like that. And then if you're all good to go, who gives a shit if you've got 12 rounds in your magazine versus 5 or 10? It's stupid.
It is stupid. Yeah. But that's my point. That doesn't affect you, though. You didn't vote for Republican because you believe so heavily in what you're talking about. Meaning your personal life, as you mentioned, shouldn't reflect politics. And it doesn't, because if that was the case, you would only vote Republican because of gun control, because of one policy. Does that make sense? You can't pick and choose certain things that you like and don't like. And that, unfortunately, was the problem with Trump, is even if there was one thing that someone liked what he said, they voted for him because the other side didn't believe in it. And I disagree with a lot of things the Republicans do. Like, I'm not, religious. I'm actually, believe it or not, more torn on abortion because I think there are certain circumstances and all that. But I also don't think you should just be going around killing babies like when they're 40 weeks and shit. So it's like, it just kind of, it's hard, right? With taxes, you look at California, New York, the taxes there are astronomical, and they're the worst states to live in from like a financial standpoint. And you look at the homeless there. You don't want this whole place. Like, if I was to sum it up, you wouldn't want this whole country to be like New York. Fair to say?
I wouldn't want it to be like New York. No, I would not want it to be like New York. And
it is a very, very strong liberal state. And that's what people think, is people would prefer this place to be like Texas, because it's mostly Republican, versus California. That's just
I think
everybody,
what people should be striving for is a compromise somewhere in the middle between.
Oh, for sure.
That's where we should be going, but we can't do that.
And we should also all have safe sex and there should be background checks.
$50 an hour and
yes.
Yes, I get what I'm saying. I get what I'm saying in a perfect world.
Of course.
But my whole point of being for humanity and voting for the side of humanity is we've been conservative before in the past. The 90s was pretty conservative for some portions of it. And now we're going way too far one direction. We have to try to get back to the middle. And I don't think voting for the guy who's in office right now was a good way to do that, because he is now taking it way too far right now. Way too far.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that, again, I don't agree with, but this is our president. We have to believe in the system that we have in place, and in a couple years we'll be able to put someone back in there that more aligns with our beliefs. I love what you're saying about voting for humanity, because, dude, I want to believe you so bad, but also I just know you, and I see your posts and I see your anger. I just don't know if it is for humanity, because the world is gross and disgusting and messy, and we have to have more rules, and we have to have more
I'm not saying that we shouldn't have more rules.
No, I know, but throwing out liberal states like California, New York, just because you can, pick apart that state and see its flaws. And it's mostly because of democratic policies in place. And if they met more in the middle, that's more that. See, the California, New York is the definition of taking care of humanity, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work when you house. It doesn't work when you house the homeless.
There's fine tuning involved, absolutely. And I'm not saying that when I'm voting, this was such an extreme. Yeah, I want what's best for everybody. But
you shouldn't, though. You know that.
Yeah, I guess not. Not. But that's the anger comes from the anger the anger comes from seeing that we are going too far in one direction. And again, like I said at the beginning, we're all part of the same bird. And if you're standing too far on either side, that's extremism. Extremism is bad no matter what. If you look at the shape of the country right now, and like from how the rest of the world is viewing us, and how we're even viewing ourselves, I don't know that this country makes it as we know this country today throughout the next 4, 6, 8 years.
Yeah,
I don't. I think when we come out of this administration, if we come out of this administration, I think it's going to be very, very completely different. It's not going to be a democracy. It's not.
Well, yeah, I think this is probably the last, election. I don't think it's going to be good either way.
So you think he will try to stay in power, right?
No. I don't think it's going to be Trump. I just think something's going to go down. I don't think anything's going to matter.
Let me just curious as your opinion on this real fast. Yeah. I know we've been on here a while. We'll wrap up. I apologize. We've ranted a lot. Let's say we get to the end of the 4 years, huh? Okay. Mm-hmm. And just like the first one, he throws a temper tantrum, refuses to recede. And this time he actually somehow, let's just say, play devil's advocate here. Let's just say somehow he does manage to keep himself in power. At that point, are you going to realize, oh, this is not good?
Oh, yeah.
Or are you still going to be like, oh, okay, well, it's Trump and I liked him, so I'm glad he's still in office?
No, I definitely would disagree with that and probably move out of the country.
That's my problem with a lot of conservatives, or I won't say conservatives, I'll say MAGAs today, is when you ask them that. There's been plenty of video clips of people asking them that. Sure. If Trump could somehow figure out how to be in power again after 2028, they say, absolutely, we would love that. We would love him to stay in power as long as he can. And that's where my problem is. These people cannot admit when they're moving goalposts to match whatever agenda that they want to move it to.
I think the argument could be made on both sides, for sure. I don't agree with those hardcore supporters. I don't judge a book by its cover in that aspect. I can understand your frustration when it comes to it on that side, seeing the others. But there's also people like yourself, no disrespect, but you might not wear the MAGA hats but you still have an aggression towards the right side. So some would argue that you're more radical on the left based off what they see. And I think that's where the division comes into play. Like if you post more stuff about the conversations you and I are having on social media, I think you'd get a lot less hate and more respect. And that's why I try personally to talk about all types of stuff on the podcast, because you just cannot get any type of conversation going in the comments. And all these topics we're talking about, dude, are so intricate and they're not perfect. Like, we didn't even talk about healthcare or taxes or hardcore gun control or anything like that. But all this stuff where there's pros and cons to everything. Like just healthcare. Let's talk about that for 5 seconds. Then I got to bounce. But we think healthcare should be for everybody, just like maybe in Europe. But that's a horrible decision, because if you have an arm that got severed, you're going to be waiting in line in Europe. What's great about what we have here is we do have the option for private doctors, but we also have the option for ERs and things like that. But you're going to get charged an arm and a leg, and it sucks. But you're going to get the care that you need because we have the best doctors in the house. The answer is not what we're doing now currently in the U.S., and the answer is not what Italy is doing. It's somewhere in the middle, to your point earlier. The problem is, though, if we figure out what that middle part is, the red and the blue have nothing to fight about.
So actually, and again, I'm curious as to where. I mean, I guess it depends on where in Europe you're talking about universal healthcare, but there are some countries. I can't remember if it's Greenland or Iceland where they have universal healthcare, but universal healthcare is for like your preventative stuff, your everyday doctor's visits,
and then private for
checkups,
other stuff.
Your exactly. That's what the majority of people are talking about when they say universal healthcare is, hey, you should be able to go and get basic, your labs done to make sure that you're healthy, have your blood pressure checked, have a doctor examine you and tell you if there's something that you might need to go and see something more specialized about. And then, from there you have privatized insurance that kicks in and does all that.
Yeah.
But it works great in a lot of places.
It does, but also, too, the argument could be made that a lot of those places don't have the issues we do because we're the most unhealthiest country on the planet. This is where the challenge becomes is if they were like the U.S., I bet they wouldn't have those issues. But because they don't need it as much as we do.
People, and so
these are just the facts.
Medical attention than
else. like Italy is a good example. You're right about Iceland, but Italy is a good example where it is free, but they also pay 60% in taxes. So we pay relatively, if you look at your annual income, you probably pay between 30 to 40% in taxes annual. They pay 60, and they have free healthcare. So the money has to come from somewhere. So if we were to give out universal health care or universal basic income, taxes are going to get raised. You're going to make less money. So
why didn't we just cut a whole bunch of money with the Department of Doge that we then built this stupid ballroom
reallocated it somewhere else? Yeah. Well, apparently that's why you cut.
What do you mean? You can easily do that. It just nobody. The point is the people in power aren't going to. The rich are only going to make the rich richer.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why I think the issue is that this country is just in a very bad situation. And I don't think we've considered heavily of getting out of the country and going somewhere else. Not because of Trump or Biden or anything like that. It's just, to me, again, this is where you say your personal beliefs and your religious beliefs shouldn't be involved in politics. I actually disagree, even though I'm not religious. But I think your personal beliefs should be the driving force of politics because if you start thinking about everyone else, this is where we run into issues like we've seen in California and New York and these types of places that we're talking about, is because you're not voting for what's good for you on a daily basis. I think Chicago and all these places in the country that are shitty, like the homeless population, all that, I think we should drive into the nitty gritty. What's the real issue of these areas? Let's fix that from a government standpoint, however we got to do it. And that's how we can fix it. Because if you can create better humans, then everything else fixes itself. You know, like, again, I go back to like Italy. I'm just using this as an example because we're talking about it. But they have the best food, right, on the planet. They're less sick. They're one of the blue zones where people are living past 100 and they're walking up and down stairs. Now, do they make as much money as Americans? Of course not. They make a lot less. But some could argue they're a lot happier. Here in America, it's all about the greed. It's all about innovation. It's all about being number one. And I think that is the issue that we're having, where we're just continue to be driven by like being number one and being the best, that we're not worried about the citizens. This is when we do have to find middle ground. So like for me personally, when I talk about voting politics, I only care about the food. That's it. Because I know that's going to solve more issues than me. Like, if I vote against abortion, oh man, my life is going to be better.
Right. No, I get what you're saying.
You know, it's like you have to kind of pick a side. And that is what's so shitty about politics, bro, is you only get these two sides. And, you know, like if I say I voted Republican, but I think there should be like background checks and psych evals for guns. If I say that, I'm like a crazy liberal, right? Like you can't have a cocktail of different things. And that to me is so fascinating.
That comes back to poor education.
Because, and this is what I think where this whole conversation started with me, is when, you know, I said I voted for Trump, even though I voted for Obama as well. But if I say that, people think I'm a racist. But if we have a conversation like we have over 2 hours here, and, you know, hopefully you can see there is a few things that I like about Republicans, but also a few things that I can't stand and I hate. And unfortunately, there's just, you have to pick lesser of two evils like you did when you voted for Harris. It is personal beliefs. You know, you could say you want to protect humanity all you want, but we never knew any of this stuff was going to go down. Like you vote. I mean,
personal beliefs definitely should affect, and maybe I misspoke on that. I just don't think religious. I mean, religious beliefs can be personal beliefs, but I think if it's religious, it should just be. If you know it's part of your religious faith, you should just cut that out of what policy making you're going to be trying to do.
That is a big issue. And that's why I think religion should be completely outlawed as well. But that's a different podcast.
I wouldn't be mad about it.
Yeah.
That is a cancer in and of itself in this country.
It's so bad.
Organized religion.
Yes. It's a cult. How are the Catholics doing? Okay. So listen, I think we talked about a lot. We did a lot of rants. You know, I enjoyed this. I really did, because I think it's better than, you know, you in the comments. And I know you're a different person, and I wanted to give, you know, people the opportunity to kind of see that, because I think a lot of people feel what you feel. But I think when people believe in Trump or believe in Harris or believe in Obama so intensely that they're not willing to listen to the person that didn't vote for them, that is a real problem. That is how we get political violence. That is how we get the issues that we've been seeing the last couple of years, is because we think left is better than right and right is better than left. And it's very dangerous. So
it is. Well, I mean, it's a very dangerous time in this country, period.
Yeah.
So,
well, hopefully it gets better. I mean, I think, you know, the only thing we can do is obviously we can vote. We can practice democracy as best we can, but I just don't know if we're ever going to get to a point, unless social media stops and the grid goes out. I don't know if we're ever going to get to the point to where, you know, we all can get on the same page.
That would be something, you know, and the thing with social media is try to. I keep saying it to myself, like I could definitely benefit both physically and mentally from spending a lot less time on social media.
For sure.
Then you start to disconnect from it, and then where am I going to find my funny reels, and what am I what am I going to do when I'm sitting on the toilet for 20 minutes because I eat like shit. So it's like,
well, it's so good, man. There's so much cool shit out there. It's hard to disconnect from it. So, but anyway, man, listen, I enjoyed this.
Me too.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on and being honest. And if there's anybody listening that wants to find you, I'll leave your Facebook here if anybody dares to go see it. But
I've got my Facebook pretty locked down now. So
do you? Okay. Well, where can people find you if you want them to?
And they can find me they can find Instagram, Wiz_the_gray_Jedi. So just Wiz the Gray Jedi with an underscore between
separating it. Okay, cool, man. All right. Any final thoughts?
Nah, man, this was good. I wish that having this conversation with other conservatives was how it goes, but I have tried to have conversations like this with even my parents, and it turns into a screaming match, and then nothing gets done. So it's not.
Yeah.
This was definitely beneficial for, I think, both of us.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Jonathan. Well, thanks again, man. I look forward to seeing your post soon, but we'll talk.
Okay, bye.